It's just after 6 p.m. in Marion, Illinois. Matt McComas is finishing up some yard work whilst children are playing in the yard outside the McComas residence. Today, the air in Marion is extremely thick and humid, even by mid-May standards. The tree-filled streets of town seem calm, almost too calm, for 6 p.m. on a Friday evening. A large, 15% risk for significant tornadoes sprawls across a significant portion of the central United States, with Marion almost in the dead center. Although the family knows about the potential for tornadoes today, the sky was mostly clear, with a few patchy cumulus clouds spreading throughout, spreading doubt that anything would threaten their home. However, the calmness throughout the town would not last for much longer. Suddenly, the tornado sirens throughout the town played their piercingly loud sounds. Just miles to the southwest of town, a fast-moving, violent tornado with winds up to 190 miles per hour is racing its way towards Marion and the McComas residence. Quickly, Matt and his wife grab their kids and run to a small crawl space under their home. The crawl space is only about 2 feet high and extremely dark and damp. Underneath the crawl space, the parents lay on top of the children to shield them from debris and tornadic winds. Just seconds after the family reaches the crawl space, the violent tornado strikes their home. In an instant, the violent tornado tears through their home, smashing glass windows and shredding 2 of their walls cleanly from the foundation. In the end, the family fortunately survives the tornado with no injuries, but their home was badly damaged. Across parts of south-central Illinois, the violent tornado with winds up to 190 miles per hour shredded a nearly 17-mile path of pure destruction, causing 7 injuries and leaving a trail of almost complete destruction in its wake. Days before the 16th, forecasters took note of a possibly widespread severe weather day coming up. The first note of the potential for severe weather on the 16th by the SPC was on the Day 5 Outlook issued on May 12th, which indicated a 15% risk throughout parts of the central United States. For the next 3 days, the slight/15% risk was maintained. Then, on the Day 2 Outlook, an enhanced risk for severe weather was introduced, with the first note of significant tornadoes. At this point, the storm mode was still uncertain, which led to more conservative forecasts being issued. Storm mode is extremely important in severe weather forecasting due to the different impacts that different storm types can have. For example, a more linear mode can cause more widespread wind events with less hail and strong tornado potential, while a more isolated threat can cause a more significant hail and tornado threat. However, by the next outlook, it became more evident that the storm mode would be isolated and thus more conducive for significant tornadoes, and a moderate risk was issued. As the 16th neared even closer, it became even more evident that the meteorological setup was nearly a perfect recipe for a widespread tornado outbreak across the Ohio Valley. A powerful upper-level shortwave moved across the upper Midwest, causing height falls and strengthening winds aloft to 70 to 80 knots by evening. These height falls, in conjunction with the cold front, allowed for ample forcing and lift to initiate storms. To put it simply, lift triggers upward air motion and sparks storm development. So, the potent upper-level shortwave, combined with the surface cold front, provided a necessary lift to initiate explosive thunderstorms across the region. This powerful shortwave and strengthening winds aloft also allowed for ample wind shear to sustain storms. Shear is a change in wind speed and direction with height, which organizes thunderstorms into rotating supercells. Deep layer shear reached nearly 65 to 70 knots, with storm relative helicity, or SRH, over 400, creating a textbook environment for significant tornado formation. The exit region of a 125-knot jet stream further enhanced the environment for severe storms. At the surface, a low-pressure system with a trailing cold front clashed with warm, moist air from the Gulf, with dew points in the 70s fueling instability. Warm, moist air acts as fuel for thunderstorms. The dew points in the lower to mid-70s, drawn from the Gulf, provided ample moisture, enhancing atmospheric instability. The significant tornado parameter, or STP, peaked at 9, and mid-level lapse rates exceeded 8 degrees Celsius. Lapse rates are important to severe weather potential because the steeper the lapse rates, the more unstable the atmosphere can become. In addition, Cape values surged to 3,000 to 4,000 joules per kilogram due to extensive clearing and steep lapse rates. CAPE, or convective available potential energy, is the measurement of instability in the atmosphere that is needed to produce potent, severe thunderstorms. The Storm Prediction Center then issued a moderate risk for severe weather on the 15th, highlighting a 15% chance of significant tornadoes EF2 or greater, and a 45% chance of very large hail and damaging winds. A potentially major tornado outbreak seemed increasingly likely. May 16th began with warm, humid conditions across the entire Ohio Valley. Temperatures reached the mid-80s, and dew points hovered in the lower to mid-70s, creating a muggy and extremely unstable air mass. It was evident by late morning that the environment was setting up for disaster. Soundings taken from National Weather Service offices around the region showcased classic tornado outbreak environment soundings similar to other major outbreaks that occurred in the region in the past. These soundings suggested that numerous fast-moving supercells would erupt across the region in the early afternoon and potentially produce numerous strong to violent tornadoes. At the next update, the SPC maintained the moderate risk outlook and confirmed the potential for a widespread severe weather outbreak. By late afternoon, storms fired in southern Missouri and Illinois, organizing into supercells as they moved eastward. Just before noon, a mesoscale discussion was issued for almost the entirety of southern Missouri, noting the potential for very large hail and significant tornadoes. Then, just 10 minutes later, a tornado watch was issued for the region, noting that a few tornadoes would be likely, with a couple intense tornadoes possible. As storms began to fire in southern Missouri, they produced multiple rounds of tornadic supercells and large hail. At around 2 p.m., another mesoscale discussion was issued, mentioning that the storms currently in southeastern Missouri would continue to move eastward into Illinois and have ample low-level spin to produce strong tornadoes. Just after 3 p.m., another tornado watch was issued for further east, mentioning an even higher potential for tornadoes than the original watch. By 5 p.m., numerous tornadoes had already occurred across multiple areas, including St. Louis and Crowder, Missouri. Then, at approximately 5:09 p.m., a lone supercell in southeastern Missouri began to show a strong rotation signature and was quickly tornado warmed. As the supercell continued to move east into the clearer and more favorable environment for tornadoes, it showed no signs of stopping. As the supercell continued east, the initial circulation dissipated and a new one formed further to the south and progressed eastward. The supercell then crossed the state line into Illinois. Following the issuance of a fifth tornado warning for the cell at 6:08 p.m., the tornado touched down along Grassy Road at 6:15 p.m., northwest of Wolf Creek in Williamson County, initially causing mostly EF0 tree damage as it moved due east. As the tornado neared Illinois 148, it intensified to EF1 strength, destroying an outbuilding and heavily damaging a mobile home as it crossed the highway. The tornado then rapidly intensified and reached high-end EF3 intensity as it struck the USP Marion, a federal prison, where several staff housing buildings had their roofs removed and multiple exterior walls were knocked down. At this point, the tornado warning for the storm was upgraded to a PDS, or Particularly Dangerous Situation, tornado warning because the radar confirmed the presence of debris being lofted by the tornado. PDS warnings are rare variations of tornado warnings, reserved for high-confidence situations of strong or violent tornadoes ongoing. As the tornado continued eastward at EF3 intensity, it caused heavy tree damage, including some trees that were stubbed and debarked. The tornado then snapped a large, double wooden post transmission line at its base. After continuing eastward for a while, the tornado then struck Hudgens, snapping trees and damaging several homes as it crossed Illinois 37, including at least one home that was leveled and at least one other that had exterior walls knocked down. The tornado then continued eastward and weakened to EF2 intensity. Around this area, the tornado heavily damaged homes and mobile homes as it crossed Market Road and Andrew Road. At this time, a new tornado warning with a rare tornado emergency tag was issued for the storm when a large debris ball showed up on radar. A tornado emergency is similar to a PDS tornado warning, but is only used when significant tornadoes are occurring near large population centers. Just south of Marion, the tornado then abruptly intensified again and became violent, reaching its peak intensity on Kyler Court. Here, it swept a two-story house off its elevated floor system and debarked and stubbed hundreds of trees behind the home. This home had a crawlspace foundation where the home sat on top of an elevated floor system. Sill plates were anchored to the concrete foundation by bolts, and the floor joists were toe-nailed to the sill plates. The failure occurred at the weak connection between the floor joists and the bottom wall plate, where straight nails were used. These connections were deemed to be well constructed, but just slightly below the expected threshold of 200 miles per hour for degree of damage 10. The damage to the home, along with the extreme tree damage nearby, led to a high-end EF4 rating, with winds up to 190 miles per hour being assigned to this home. Another home nearby was almost completely leveled, and other homes had roofs removed and exterior walls knocked down, and an outbuilding was destroyed, with numerous trees also falling on debris from the structure. The tornado then weakened somewhat, but remained intense as it crossed Ward's Mill Road at mid-range EF3 intensity. Here, 2 homes were leveled, with an injury occurring in the second one. Other homes had roofs removed and exterior walls knocked down, outbuildings were demolished, and 4 wooden power poles were snapped. The tornado then weakened further, but still remained strong, continuing eastward at EF2 intensity through more rural and wooden areas. Most of the damage along this portion of the path was trees being snapped, although it destroyed an outbuilding as well, heavily damaged a home, and snapped power poles. The tornado then re-intensified to high-end EF3 strength again as it crossed Illinois 166, sweeping away an unanchored home, leveling a nailed-down home, and removing the roof and knocking off down some exterior walls of a third home. The tornado then steadily weakened, destroying an outbuilding at EF2 intensity, then causing increasingly sporadic tree damage before lifting at 6:32 p.m. In total, the tornado was on the ground for 17 minutes, had a path length of 16.57 miles, and was 900 yards at its largest width. Additionally, 7 people were injured from the tornado, but nobody was killed. The storm that produced the EF4 would remain tornado warned for nearly 4 more hours as it continued eastward, producing 3 additional tornadoes before weakening below severe limits over northwestern Hardin County and Kentucky. The Marion tornado became Illinois' first violent tornado since the Rochelle EF4 in 2015. Immediately after the tornado left the area, county officials near Marion instituted an overnight curfew for unsafe travel conditions due to the intense damage caused by the tornado. To aid recovery, volunteer centers, including 2 Red Cross shelters, opened in Marion the following day. In addition, Marion Community School District No. 2 collected donations that went directly to school district families who needed immediate help. School district leaders say families needed clothing, food, temporary shelter, support, and even more. Over the following days, hundreds of volunteers gathered throughout the damage path to help clean up the damage. In addition, National Weather Service surveys confirmed the 190 mph EF4 rating, signaling an extremely violent damage occurred at the well-constructed home. Napa's distribution center in Mount Vernon played a significant role in recovery efforts by donating a full pallet of cleanup buckets. The buckets provided essential support for those sifting through debris. Walgreens also contributed by supplying water and cleaning products to their Mount Vernon distribution center, offering crucial aid. This is why community matters, Natalie Shook, executive director of United Way of South Central Illinois, said. In the moments of crisis, it's the strength of our partnerships and compassion of everyday people that truly shine. We are honored to support Marion and will continue to stand with them in every step of the way. As the recovery efforts continue, the tornado will forever leave a lasting impact on the community. Anyways, thank you all so much for watching. I checked it out. It said only about 9% of you guys are subscribed. So if you're not, make sure to subscribe so you can join that 9% or hopefully a little higher, after a few of these videos. But anyways, but if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like and subscribe. Also, if you'd like to help support the channel any further, become a member today for as little as $1 a month to receive numerous behind-the-scenes views and my chasing, documentaries, and everything else. Just some other posts. I make posts once in a while on there, but only you guys get to see them if you're paying just as cheap as $1 a month. You can go up to 50, I think, but that's for like a more of a sponsor kind of thing. But yeah, anyways, $1 a month can give you a lot of those behind-the-scenes benefits. But anyways, thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Goodbye.
We got this one tornado right here. Very large tornado directly in front of us.